Sections 3.1 and 3.2. Section 3.1 is on statements, negations, and quantified statements. And section 3.2 is on compound statements and connectives. So this whole chapter is devoted to studying logic. The first two sections are paving the way for something called truth tables that we're going to be dealing with later in this chapter. We're going to be practicing going back and forth between math symbols and the English language in this first video, and in the second video, the part 2 video as well. Now, when we're studying logic, instead of using X, Y, Z like you would in an algebra course, we're going to instead use letters like P, Q, and R to represent our statements, to represent our sentences. We have 5 symbols to discuss and to be familiarized with their symbols. The first of the 5 is going to be negation, and the negation symbol is this little tilde. It's to the left of the number 1 on a standard keyboard. Whenever I draw it, since I have messy handwriting, just to give you a heads up, that's what my tilde, my negation symbol looks like. I promise I am not drawing a little N. Kind of looks like a little mustache, if you will. But that's negation, and every time we see that symbol, we read it out loud as the word not. When we negate something, we make it have, of course, the opposite meaning. So first example is going to practice using this symbol, and it says to translate the following statements to symbolic form. In other words, here's the English language, transfer it to math symbols. First sentence is Joe is not at home. First step is going to be to assign letters. I'll do it in blue. And traditionally, we start with P. Just like traditionally, we start with X in algebra. In logic, we start with P and go down the alphabet from there. Now, we're going to ignore the word not whenever we see it. And you'll see why we do that by the end of this question. So if I'm ignoring the word not, that means that P is going to represent the idea that Joe is at home. Joe is at home. So step 1, when you're given an English sentence and you're told to translate it to math symbols, you're going to assign letters to all of the ideas, and you're going to temporarily ignore any nots, the word not that you see in the sentence. Now step 2, we're finally going to convert the English language to symbols. And now we're going to bring back the word not with our symbol for not, this little tilde, this little squiggle here. So that's not, and I want to negate that Joe is at home. So then we have the word P. So that's why in step 1 we temporarily ignore the word not, because in step 2 we bring it back with that little squiggle shape, that tilde mark anyway. So here's the final answer right here. I'd read that out loud as not P. Whenever we negate any sentences in this chapter, the negation squiggle, that negation symbol, will always go before the letter, before the idea you're trying to negate. So not P means that Joe is not at home. When you have your homework on this, you could either just type in the negation symbol P. Remember, I mentioned that negation tilde is to the left of the number 1 on a traditional keyboard. Or when you click in the homework box, there is going to be a template that appears below your question in my math lab. And you can use that template to get all those symbols in there. And then just use the keyboard to type in the lowercase p. So tilde P for not P, final answer. B, Steve is not a college student. So step 1, we assign letters to represent the ideas. There's only one idea here. And we ignore the word not. So that means P is going to now represent that Steve is a college student. Steve is a college student. Now step 2, we bring back the word not because we get to use the symbols. The negation symbol goes before the letter, and we end up with not P again because we want to say that Steve is not a college student. I'm negating the idea that he is a college student. So not P, coincidentally enough, is again the final answer. Before we discuss the second symbol in this section, I want to mention what the opposite of something called a quantifier is, because they're going to expect you to know that on the homework and on the test. A quantifier is words like all, some, none. And if you look at the top line, it says, here's a negation table for quantifiers. So whenever the homework asks you to negate one of those phrases, the way this table works is that the opposites, the negations, are located across from each other in the following table. So if the question asks me to negate the phrase all are, the negation, meaning the opposite of that, we'll just look across the way here, some are not. So some are not is the negation of all are, and vice versa. The opposite of some are not would be all are. However, if you just see some, not some not, if you just see some are, the negation of that phrase would be none are, or they might just simply say the word no. No means the same as none. So the opposite of some are would be none or no, and vice versa. Again, the opposite of none or no would be some are. There are multiple right answers for these types of questions. However, they're going to be presented to you in a multiple choice format on the homework, so they're going to expect you to be using this table to select the correct answer. Looking at an example, it says write the negation. Remember, negation means opposite, so the opposite of the following statements. Part A, some snakes are poisonous. We look for our key phrases using the table. The key phrase I see are some are. The opposite of some are would be the second line, the word no or none. So all I simply need to do now is rewrite the sentence using the word none or the word no so that it makes sense. So the opposite of some snakes are poisonous would be that no snakes are poisonous. I swapped out the phrase some are with its opposite, the word no, in a sentence that makes sense. If I wanted to further check my answer, if I look at the original sentence, some snakes are poisonous, well, that's obviously a true statement. Some snakes on the planet are poisonous. So if my task is to negate a true statement, that means my answer better be a false statement. My answer was that no snakes, in other words, no snakes on the planet whatsoever are poisonous. Well, that's definitely a false statement. I negated a true statement and I got a false statement, so that's a very good sign that I have the correct answer as well. Looking at part B, all swimming pools are rectangular. Well, that's a lie. You could have circular swimming pools. You could have swimming pools all sorts of shapes. So when I negate this sentence, this false sentence, now my answer better be a true statement. I look for the key phrase from the table, and I see the word all, the phrase all are. On the table, it says that the opposite of all are is some are not. So I need to rewrite this sentence with some and not. So I'm going to rewrite it as some swimming pools are not rectangular. So I've negated all are with the phrase some not. And notice my answer, some swimming pools are not rectangular. Well, that's a true statement. I negated a false statement and came up with a true statement. So that's another sign that I do have the correct final answer. The second symbol of the 5 is called a conjunction. a conjunction. That's its classification. And the symbol for conjunction is an arrow pointing up. The way that we read this out loud is as the word and. So from here on out, whenever you see the up arrow, you're going to say the word and. It also represents the words but, however, and nevertheless. So whenever you're switching from English language to symbols and you see the word and, but, however, nevertheless, any of those 4 words are all a type of conjunction, so you can swap them out with this up arrow. A memory trick that some people do is they'll take the up arrow and make it into a capital A for and. So as an example of practicing using this symbol, it says to write the following conjunction in symbolic form. In other words, translate from English language to math symbols. Here we go. The sentence is Green Day is not on tour, but Green Day is recording a new CD. Step 1 when we're going from language to math symbols is first we have to assign letters to all of the main ideas. We start with the letter P traditionally, thinking back to the first slide in this video. So I'm going to let P equal, and remember we temporarily ignore the word not. So instead of saying Green Day is not on tour, I'm going to let P represent that Green Day is on tour. I'm going to abbreviate. I'm going to put GD for Green Day. So Green Day is on tour is now going to be represented with the letter P. There is a second idea. This is our first example in this video of a statement with 2 ideas. We call this a compound statement when it has 2 or more ideas. The second idea is that Green Day is recording a new CD. So I go down the alphabet from the letter P, which means I'm going to use Q. So let Q represent that Green Day is recording a new CD. Only 2 ideas in this particular example, so step 1 is done. We've assigned letters to all the main ideas. Now step 2, go through the sentence one more time and bring in your symbols. So the first part of the sentence was that Green Day is not on tour. We can bring back the word not with that little curvy squiggle, that tilde negation symbol. So not P. That means we're negating the idea that Green Day is on tour because they're not on tour. And I'm going to slash that part of the sentence because we took care of it now. Next up, I see the word but. Remember, but is treated like the word and. We use our conjunction up arrow. So that and arrow took care of the word but. Green Day is recording a new CD. Well, that was letter Q. So our final answer is not P and Q is how I'd read that out loud. For Green Day is not on tour, but Green Day is recording a new CD. And you would type that all in. You can either use the standard keyboard or the template. You might need to use the template that appears below your My Math Lab question. When you click inside the little answer box, that template will appear. At the very least, you might need to use the template for the up arrow that represents the word but, the and. The third symbol of the 5 in this chapter is called a disjunction. It's very similar looking to a conjunction. They took that same arrow, but they flipped it upside down. It has a totally different meaning though. So disjunction is a down arrow, think DD, disjunction, down arrow. And we read that out loud as the word or. So whenever you see the word or and you want to rewrite it with math symbols, you'll from here on out use that down arrow. As an example, it says, let P represent the idea that Maria will go to the park. Let Q represent the idea that Maria will go to the zoo. Write the following statements in symbolic form. So we're going to go from, yet again, the English language into math symbols. In this particular example, they're being a little bit nicer to us because they already assigned the letters for us. Usually we have to do that. So we can jump right into step 2, which is going right into the math symbols, since they've already taken care of the letter assigning for us. Part A, Maria will go to the park or the zoo. Now we want to go in the same exact order as the sentence from left to right. So as I reread that sentence, the first idea that I hit is park. Park is represented by letter P. So P is going to come first. Check. Next up, the word or. We use our new down arrow, that disjunction down arrow. Check. And last, zoo is represented by the letter Q. So here's my final answer. I would type into my math lab homework. It says P or Q is how I read that out loud. P, down arrow, Q. No spaces in between any of this. Next up, part B. Maria will go to the zoo or she will not go to the park. Remember, I don't necessarily go in alphabetical order. I go in the same order as the sentence from left to right. So this time, it's like they're trying to trick us because zoo comes up first when you reread that sentence. And zoo is represented by the letter Q. So Q is going to come first for a change. Check. I'll slash each part of the sentence as we take care of it. Then we hit the word or, which is that down arrow. Check. She will not go to the park, so I need to negate the idea of park. So that little squiggle from the first slide, that negation symbol, and park was the letter P, so not P. I'd read the final answer out loud as Q or not P. Part C, Maria will not go to the park or she will not go to the zoo. Up first is not going to the park, so I need to negate park. So there's that squiggle tilde shape again. Park was letter P, so not park is not P. Or another down arrow, that disjunction down arrow, check. She will not go to the zoo. I have to also negate the zoo idea. So negation, that squiggle again, and zoo was Q. So my final answer is math symbols is not P or not Q is how I would read that out loud. Again, no spaces whatsoever in between any of this.